to Bad Larry.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Bad Larry Kingdom. I'm your host, Bad Larry, and today we're continuing our Tomb of Dracula with issue number 5, Death to a Vampire Slayer. And I'm very excited about this issue. Typically, for me, issue number 5 is the issue where you know if the writers really have a concrete plan for the series or they're just making it up on the fly. But before we dive into this issue, we got to rate that cover. I gave this cover a 90%. I thought it was fantastic. Who doesn't enjoy the classic imagery of the town villagers taking pitch forks and torches to the monster's home? The monster is front and center. Count Dracula holding a helpless female. All of the town villagers with no powers and really, understanding that they're up against something legitimately scary and evil, have bound together and come together to try and save their village from this monster. I also love the coloring. The guy turned towards us in the front with the purple and the blues. It's very ethereal. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the lighting, the color. Again, just the text bubbles on the front take it away a little bit for me. I don't think that they needed them, but I think that that's what they understood later on. Just creating an image and letting the words speak to you inside the page. But other than that, I still think this covers an A, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. We have our typical artist on this issue, Eugene Colon, but we have a guest writer in Gardner Fox. Let's see how he's going to compare to our typical writer. If you missed episode or issue number 4, what's happened is Frank Drake and Dr. Rachel Van Helsing and Taj, Dr. Van Helsing's man Indian servant, have chased Count Dracula up into this boudoir, and Count Dracula has recited an incantation into this dark, mysterious mirror, this evil mirror of blackness. And when he's recited the incantation, the black mirror momentarily has turned into a portal into another time. And Dracula and Taj have now drug themselves into that portal. When Isla Strangeway gave Count Dracula this mirror, she thought that she was using it as some sort of insurance, that if Count Dracula had betrayed her, which he did, that he would be tempted to go into the mirror, go back in time, but in order for him to get to where he needed to go, there had to be a second mirror, something that she didn't tell Count Dracula about. And she believed that once Count Dracula entered into this limbo land, that these monsters and demons who occupy this limbo existence, this limbo dimension, would be able to easily destroy Count Dracula. Well, one thing was right. Count Dracula has been surprised by these demons. However, she underestimated his power and his strength and really his will to live for someone who is undead. Now, he is battling these demons, and surprisingly, he's faring very well. He's, faster, he's stronger, he's striking them down, but he understands that he's only one person against the horde of many demons. And he's thinking he's going to sacrifice Taj and let Taj be eaten up by these demons. But then he realizes, if I'm going to have to get out of here, I'm going to need my own strength and my own sustenance, and the only thing around here I can eat is Taj. So out of his own desire to save himself, as keeping a snack around for later, he saves Taj from the demons. And now he has to realize he has to find a way to get out of this dimension. What I love in this series is that Dracula, Count Dracula, is clearly the monster. He's the villain. But in this particular scene, he's the hero to Taj because these monsters are trying to eat Taj, and Count Dracula is having to fight off all of these monsters and demons to not only save himself but Taj, even though his motivation in saving Taj is quite selfish, that he may have to eat Taj himself later, but nevertheless in the moment the end result is the same. And then they come across Count Dracula comes across this pathway that's shimmering silver, and what I love is the connection to the eternal heaven, streets of gold. Obviously, this place in limbo is a lower place than heaven, so we know that silver is less valuable than gold. So, this place having streets of silver, which the demons will not walk on at all. So, it's kind of like a home base safety zone that they can walk and be safe from these demons. But even though it's a safe place, it's you can't have gold down in that demon realm because the streets of gold are for heaven. Back in the real world, Dr. Van Helsing and Frank Drake are still on the hunt for Count Dracula. And now they need to save their friend. They know that they went through the magic mirror, and Dr. Van Helsing, who's an occultist expert, says if Taj and Dracula went through the mirror, then they can go through the mirror. But they need the correct incantation. But obviously, they don't know it. So they go to Isla Strangeway's butler and asks him for help. And the butler tells them that before Strangeway died, and she was fascinated with this mirror, and she was always reading this book that was this grimoire, this magical, mystical, uh, evil book with yellow pages, and it's probably somewhere still in the study, so that's where they're heading. As Dr. Van Helsing, the butler, and Frank Drake head to the study, their only hope is that the safe is not locked, because if the book is in the safe and the safe is locked, then they're cooked tunas. They have no way to get into that safe. Especially, right now they're on a time crunch. They have to get through that mirror and be on the heels of Dracula. Meanwhile, back in the limbo zone, Dracula is following the shimmering streets of silver and come across a very strange visage. Two people that are burning alive but are not dissolving. These people are literally in torment. They're literal human lanterns that are showing the way into this cave. So as Dracula and Taj enter the cave, they find another magic mirror. This is exactly what Dracula needs to get out of this limbo zone. So Dracula recites an incantation, jumps through the mirror, and they find themselves in a Transylvania barn. And the main thing with Dracula is that he needs to find out exactly what time frame that they're in right now. So he knocks Taj out and he puts him in this coffin that only, one man can open because he's a Dracula. He can open it with his super strength. And he just tosses Taj in there in case he needs a snack for later. If he doesn't find anybody, he can always come back to Taj, or he'll just let him suffocate in there. So, as much of a hero as he was, he's still a bastard villain. As Dracula is walking along the dirt paths, he sees and hears a coach with a team of horses pulling it and realizes that he's in the past, a time before people had invented cars. And he realizes quickly that this is the time of Abraham Van Helsing. And if he can kill him or turn him into a vampire, that's his main goal. We know that Abraham Van Helsing is the one who initially drove the stake through Dracula's heart, causing him to slumber for centuries. So if he can kill Abraham Van Helsing or turn him into a vampire, well, he'll be ahead of the game. And then he decides to turn into a bat and go try to find some blood or somebody to eat or drink. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't he just eat Taj? This doesn't make any sense. He saved Taj and put him in the coffin for later food. Well, why didn't he just eat him then? But that's not what this writer wanted to do. As he's flying around, he comes across an unsuspecting woman. I love the art in this piece. The attention to detail is fantastic. I love the expression in her eyes. I don't know why she's out there walking alone at nighttime. This doesn't seem accurate for that time period. I think that women were often, in the home a lot and wouldn't travel at night, especially alone, because it's dangerous out there in the dark, not just from vampires, but from anybody. So this part doesn't make a lot of sense. This country gal out here walking alone, and she becomes a victim of Count Dracula. I guess for just lore's sake and just from a visual standpoint, I don't think that the idea of seeing Dracula eating men is what they prefer to present Dracula. There's a bit of a sexualized nature when Dracula is sucking the neck of this lady or a lady. Uh, and so when he's doing that to a man, it it's makes you feel weird as the reader. So I think that they prefer him to drink the blood of women just to show that, as a reader as well, you have more empathy because the women are physically weaker than men and they're more susceptible to him. So it makes you just hate Dracula that much more. Count Dracula is quite eager to kill Abraham Van Helsing, so he heads to Van Helsing's house where he overhears a maid and a servant talking about how the master of the house, Van Helsing, will be back from Bucharest in a Senite. And I'm like, what is a Senite? And this is a word that we never use anymore. It literally means 7 nights, which is a week. So Dracula has to wait a week to get his revenge on Van Helsing. So he decides to fly back to his castle, which he knows isn't burned up right now, because this is the past, and decides to get himself some nice rest. And as he's walking through the halls, he comes across this glass vase, and much like a genie, Dracula has trapped an entity inside this glass. This entity is another vampire. This vampire is a female vampire by the name of Lenore. And he just remembered because uh, he had put this Lenore vampire in this vase because, vampires can transform into bats. So I guess that he was able to get her in some sort of gaseous fog form and trapped her in this vase. And then he decides to go ahead and get his rest. And in the morning, a young shepherd has found Dracula's victim unconscious, dead from the bites of a vampire. And of course, the young shepherd runs into town, brings the body to the townspeople, and uh, everybody knows that Dracula is back. Dracula had terrorized these people for ages, and now that I guess because he was gone, they were safe for a while, but now they're terrified. And the one person who is the most qualified to kill him, he's gone. He's in Bucharest, Van Helsing, and like people do, they hem haw and they're bickering, they're arguing on what to do, and night falls, and finally they get the courage to storm Dracula's castle with pitchforks and fire. And as the moon rises, Dracula rises from his slumber, thirsty from the bloodthirst, and he's kind of happy. He's like, oh, this is like DoorDash. The food is come to him. He doesn't have to go out and hunt it down. And these poor men, these poor farmers and shepherds had no idea what they were walking into. Dracula, with the speed and ferocity that they've never seen, they must have heard the stories, but I guess they didn't take heed to them. And Dracula is cutting through these army of farmers and shepherds like knife through butter. And finally, he takes a victim by random. And like I said before, the image of Dracula biting this man's neck, it's not as sexy. They hide Dracula's face. They don't want to really show exactly the bite like they would with a female. It's a little bit from more afar. It seems more of an aggressive move versus more of a sexualized move, which I thought that was an interesting way that they had to depict that interaction. And then after Dracula has drunk his fill of this man or many men, then he gets a bit cocky. He's championing the fact that he is unstoppable. And instead of trying to hide in the shadows, he's letting everyone know that if you're alive, it's only because Dracula is allowing you to live. And if you're going to be his food, well, there's nothing you could do to stop him. So he's really cocky at this point because he feels invincible. Back to the present time, Dr. Rachel Van Helsing and Frank Drake are trying to open Strange Ways wall safe, and they're having a bit of trouble with it because it's rusty. But luckily, when Dracula closed the safe, he didn't turn the dial. So that's lucky for the heroes that Dracula didn't turn the dial, because why would he? He just closed it. He didn't think anybody would be trying to get in there. And honestly, he wouldn't care less anyway. So as Dr. Rachel Van Helsing is reading the incantation, they decide that they're going to continue following Dracula through the Black Mirror. They jump through the mirror and they find themselves in that same farm that Dracula and Taj had gone through. It's been a few days. Taj has been stuck in this coffin and he hasn't given up hope. Luckily, just in the nick of time, before I think Taj's all of his oxygen has run out, Dr. Van Helsing and Frank Drake hear the commotion and save Taj from his coffin and grave. They need to get him some food and water. He's been dehydrated, deoxygenated. They need to get him to some inn to get him back to health. Dr. Van Helsing realizes what time period they're in and they need to get to her grandfather's home. Meanwhile, Dracula decides that he's going to free Lenore and send her to attack his enemies, which are Dr. Van Helsing, Taj, and Frank Drake. And even though Lenore, a vampire, same as Dracula, with equal strength apparently, has been trapped in this vase for who knows how long, she's not too upset at Dracula. She's like, all right, fine, as long as I can get me some blood. And she quickly hunts down Dr. Van Helsing and dispatches Taj with a backhand and is deciding to make her first victim Frank Drake. Well, apparently Lenore is a bit of a picky eater and decides to throw Frank Drake aside and feast upon Dr. Rachel Van Helsing first. I mean, if you go back to the last frame, Lenore had Frank Drake in her hands and is about to bite him. And then the next frame, she's tossed him to the ground and is going to eat the unconscious Rachel Van Helsing. Well, time is of the essence. Frank Drake and Taj, with their man strength, rip a cross from the ground, this marble cross, and use it within the moonlight to cast a shadow upon Lenore, sending her flying off without having her feast. The week has gone by, and Dracula can't wait to accomplish his mission of killing, or at least turning, his number one enemy, Abraham Van Helsing, into a vampire. And just as he's about to bite into the neck of Abraham Van Helsing, his granddaughter from the future, Dr. Rachel Van Helsing, pops in with a very important arrow. So this arrow that she's shooting at Dracula, is the tip is made of white thorn wood, which is also hawthorn tree. So this white thorn wood is a tree, and on the branches, it's also a bit of a shrub. There are literally white thorns, and I always thought that a wooden stake would kill Dracula. Um, Maybe a wooden stake would kill a normal vampire, but to kill Dracula permanently, you have to use the white thornwood to totally permanently kill Dracula, which is why when Abraham Van Helsing initially stabbed the stake into Dracula's heart, um, it neutralized him. It turned him into a skeleton. But when Clifton took the stake out, well, that brought Dracula back to life. So Dracula can't be killed with just any old normal wooden stake. It has to be the wood from a white thornwood tree or shrub, and that's what Dr. Rachel Van Helsing has. And you should really look up this white thornwood tree. There's a lot of conspiracies around this type of tree. Some believe if you see this type of tree in a field all by itself, if you sit under it during the month of May, you can be transformed into fairyland. Either way, there's a lot of Irish mythology revolving around this type of tree. Uh, in real life, it's known that the roots of the tree repel snakes and rats. So it is a powerful tree. We know that in biblical lore that the devil took the shape of a snake. So as Christian people believe that when you see a snake, often it's symbolic of the devil, and to repel a snake is to almost repel the devil. So this is why I think that they chose this white thornwood, because it does repel snakes in real life. So why not use it to permanently kill an evil being such as Dracula? Even though Dr. Van Helsing's arrow was aimed true at Dracula's heart, that Dracula is too darn quick and has turned himself into a bat along with Lenore, and they decide together they're going to get out of there. And even though Lenore was imprisoned by Dracula for who knows how long in that darn vase, she decides that where he goes, she's going to go. No harm, no foul. They're BFFs again, which I find odd. I guess vampires don't hold that big of grudges against other vampires. Just Dracula against Van Helsing. Anyway, so they decide that they're going to escape out of this time, and Dracula and Lenore go back to the Black Mirror and go through the Black Mirror, and now Taj, Frank Drake, and Dr. Van Helsing have to continue following them through this dark mirror. So stay tuned for issue number 6 coming out soon, tomorrow, and make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this video. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Were you aware of the white thornwood being the only type of wood that could kill Dracula? I'll tell you, I wasn't aware of it before reading this comic. I thought it was just any old plain wood. But let me know what you think down in those comments below. Be good to one another. Peace.